Hey guys, GiJoe here, and welcome back to the bunker here in Atlanta, Georgia. We're continuing on with our Midway series, and here we are dealing with customization of the planes for the HBG game Battle of Midway. And I thought I'd give you a quick glance at kind of some finished work of all the different types of planes that you will see in the Battle of Midway game by HBG. So let's start with United States. So what I've been doing here recently is all the planes are painted up, and so I'm kind of doing detail work, which is decals and adding a little bit of touch of black or silver in certain spots, which you'll see here in a minute. But let's start with the American planes. First of all, in general, the color I used right here is a blue, the same blue that I use on my table. It's this Tamiya, I got it at my local hobby shop, AS19 Intermediate Blue by the U.S. Navy, and turned out beautiful. Loved it on the planes and loved it so much I decided to do my table in it as well. So let's take a look. Oh, and underneath it, let me just say this. Underneath has this gray. So essentially what I did with all of my planes is I first, of course, primed them, and I used a couple different primers. One was the gray primer from Home Depot that I use on my German pieces for Axis and Allies and etc. But so I used that on some of the planes, and I also used some of this fine surface primer, light gray primer by Tamiya as well. As far as how much is the can, you know, this Tamiya paint is not cheap, but it's so good. At least I like it. And I first was exposed to this by General Hand Grenade a couple years back. He was customizing and painting all his custom infantry, and so he was kind enough to refer me to these Tamiya paints. So put a primer down, and then of course after that went with the for the United States, went with the Intermediate Blue AS19 by Tamiya. About $8.50 a can. I've seen them up as high as $10.50 a can. So they're not cheap, but they're really good paints, and they dry very quickly. So so essentially what you have is you have the Intermediate Blue on top, and on the bottom I just have that light gray. Okay, so let's take a look here. This is the Devastator torpedo bomber, and you can see painted. I did do a little bit of weathering on these, and essentially what I did is the first thing I did was I painted all the planes blue, and then after that dried, I painted with primer first, I should say. Then I painted the top blue, and after that dried, which was fairly quickly, then I took a brush and I painted a little bit of silver mixed with white over the canopy. I learned that technique from Lieutenant Dan on his video. And then after that dried, of course, I went through all the planes. After that dried, I did some dry brushing, a little bit of black dry brushing across the canopy, and that's what kind of brought those little those lines out on the canopy, which I think look fantastic. Then of course I did a little bit of black dot there, right there in the engine is, and then put a touch of silver on the tip. Then of course dealt with some decals, right? Got the decals from Combat Miniatures, the water slides, right? They come in like a pack and all different sizes like this, which are great. And I just kind of eyeballed it, you know. Some of the planes, like the bombers, I used bigger ones, etc. And the fighters, I used smaller ones. So that's the Devastator. Let's look at the Dauntless. This is probably my favorite plane. But look at that. There's the Dauntless, same painting technique. You see the little black tip where the engine is, the prop, little silver, the canopy. I used some of the bigger decals on this, and I did go a little bit uber crazy, and I did put the decals on every place that there were decals. On the top, on the bottom, and on the sides. So yeah, that's the Dauntless SBD3. So here's the Wildcats. This was a little trickier because man, those decals were so small. And I still have to put a little bit of matte varnish on this to kind of take away the shine from the decal. I'll do that me let her. Oops, I forgot to put the side ones on here. I'll have to do that here in a minute. But what? Oh, my bottom one fell off. Curses. I'll put that one back on. This one's freshly done. That's why it probably fell off. So I'll redo that. Scout plane. We have the PBY Catalina. Look at that. Look nice and sweet. These are very good sculpt. Did that on the bottom as well. You see the light gray. And then if you look online, they put their little side decals right up there on the nose. Ooh, that was tough. Put them right there on the nose, underneath the window of the cockpit. So I got a little more detailing to do. I think probably up here I put a little silver. I just now saw that actually. So I'll go back and look at a couple pictures, but you get the general idea. And again, matte varnish will protect the paint, do all that kind of stuff, and then it'll take away a little bit of that shine. All right, so this is my B17, and the paint I use also was Tamiya, and I used the AS6 olive drab for the United States Air Force, and I thought it came out beautiful. Right? Now the bombers I noticed only had on the left on the upper, as far as decals, roundels, and lower right. So I was doing some research and I saw that the camouflage pattern that they had back then, or at least on some of the bombers that came off Midway, was the HAD, Hawaiian something. But it had like 3 or 4 different colors: brown, black, olive green, and I tried to mimic it and I just didn't like it, but I just like this good old olive drab color. So you can see I still got the gray on the bottom, looking really good. And the only thing I don't have is a US Army little decals to go across the bottom, so I might look into that. That'd be kind of cool. Little black tips on the props there. And I saw a picture of a B-17 with a little yellow on that second engine to the right, so I thought, that'd be kind of cool, a little detail to add. And you can see I did the little silver on the cockpits right there and there, and after that dry, I did a little dry brush so you see the ribs of the cage there. And then of course the decals on the side as well, and on the bottom. Even did the same thing on the bottom turret, belly gunner. All right, so let's go to the Japanese. Let's start with their reconnaissance plane. We have the Jake, and these are pretty cool. They're so itsy bitsy tiny. But this, after the primer, I used AS2 light gray international, yeah, IJN. So same thing. So that's just painted the top and bottom. And then, of course, then I did a little black on the engine there, on the front, on the nose. Then a little silver tip there for the prop. Same thing, silver on the cockpit. Dry brush, devil red there. Even put some decals on the bottom. I needed to do decals on the side here too. And then I saw some pictures. They had the red stripes. I hand painted those. It's not great, not perfect, but you know, that's right. That's so small. All right, let's go to the fighter. So the fighter is the A6M. See that? Same thing, same color. It's a kind of light ash gray. You know, as we know, Zeros weren't actually white. They were kind of a ash gray, and I even saw some reading where there were some actually like a greenish gray. And then over time, you know, because they've been in the war since what, 33? And early 30s. So you know, they had some wear and tear on their planes, but shoot, a little bit there. So this wasn't too hard to detail. It was just paint it gray, dab of silver, and once that dried, I did dry brush and then black, silver, and put on decals. So it's pretty sweet. All right, and then we'll go to the Val. The Val, same thing. The AS2 gray, right? Light gray, I should say. And then on the nose, if you notice in the pictures that the black starts right up at the cockpit and then kind of comes down and it kind of curves down, arcs down, and then circles that. So I tried to mimic that as best as possible. It was okay considering how small the piece is. A little bit of silver tip on the end. And I did a little more detail on the bottom on this. The bomb, a little bit tips on the wheels and the little wheel in the back. And then of course the decals on the, again, I still have to put the matte varnish on these things. I decided not to weather them. I think I weathered some of my US planes, but then I think I'm just gonna leave them like they are. I'm happy, I really like them. All right, so here is the Kates. Now what I did was I painted two different paint schemes for the Kates, and I actually have a couple of the valves here drying right now. I decided to go ahead and throw a couple green valves, you know, just for kicks. But we have the same paint scheme. Got the red tail. All right, you can see these are the Kates, the torpedo bombers. Same thing with the nose, where that black kind of swoops down from the front of the cockpit, kind of an angle, which is hard to do this small, but get the idea. Little silver tip for the propeller, the prop, the decals, and I put the little the dry brush on the top for the canopy. And then on the bottom, I did a little more detail. Let me take this off. On the bottom, a little bit more detail. I painted the tip of the torpedo there and the little fin, and then just a little dab of black there where the wheels might have been. So all right, so that's that. And then here's my green one. I love this green. This green I used was AS1 dark green IJN. And actually I was talking with a guy at Hobbytown. He was very, very knowledgeable on paint and also World War II aircraft. And he told me, and I researched, and it turns out he was right, but there were, he had the Mitsubishi and Nakajima factories, and the Nakajima green was darker than the Mitsubishi green. So the Mitsubishi green, I think, more like a forest green, so it was a little bit lighter than this. But this almost like a black green, and but I just thought it looked so cool. But he said the Nakajima green was darker than the Mitsubishi, so he said that this was period correct, and I love it. I think it's awesome. And other than that, the paint scheme's the same, with the red tail, the cockpit technique, black nose, the prop, and of course I did the bomb, torpedo on the end, on the bottom. And I went ahead and decided to magnetize them because I may or may not use some flight stands in the game Midway, and who knows, I might want to throw these on my BBR table from time to time to play with these. So, all right, guys, thanks, and shout out to a couple people. One, of course, Sireblood for tips on this, and also watched Lieutenant Dan's channel on his painting. In fact, I think this is kind of the little color scheme that he used. He just got it off the internet, and so I kind of followed suit. That whole kind of light ash gray, again, because they weren't really white. And but yeah, okay, thanks. Hope you enjoy watching, guys. I'll finish out the rest of these planes decals, and then got my ships primed. The ships will have to be next, and then yeah, fun times. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you're doing well.